10 Down WJ presents The Dance of Narcissus, Audrey and Eugene. The prologue. In the quaint town of Asheville, nestled between rolling hills and vibrant forests, lived a husky named Audrey. Her striking blue eyes were as captivating as her personality was tumultuous. Known for her narcissistic tendencies, she thrived on attention and validation, much like the mythological figure she was compared to, Jezebel. In a neighboring town, Shelby, resided Eugene the Crab Claw, a male narcissist with a penchant for manipulation. Together, they formed a union that would not only test their own psyches but also send ripples through their communities, as their relationship became a spectacle of drama, blame, and emotional upheaval. Chapter 1. The Union of Chaos. Audrey had always been the center of attention. With her sleek silver fur and playful demeanor, she drew admirers wherever she went. But beneath her charming exterior was a deep-seated need for admiration that bordered on obsession. She would often bask in the spotlight, relishing the admiration of onlookers while dismissing those who dared to challenge her. Eugene, on the other hand, was a peculiar creature. His crab claw was both a physical manifestation of his uniqueness and a metaphor for his personality, clutching and grasping for power in every interaction. He was a master of manipulation, believing that he could control Audrey by playing mind games and belittling her. His tactics included arguments that left Audrey in tears, which he mistook for victory. He was convinced that by making her feel small, he could elevate himself. The two met at a local park during a community event, where Audrey was showing off her agility and charm. Eugene, perched on a nearby bench, observed her with a mixture of admiration and envy. It didn't take long for him to approach her, and soon they were entangled in a whirlwind romance that was anything but healthy. Chapter 2. The Power Struggle. As their relationship progressed, the initial excitement began to fade, revealing the cracks beneath their glamorous facade. Audrey, ever the performer, found herself increasingly frustrated by Eugene's attempts to control her. She had a strong personality, and the more he tried to belittle her, the more she pushed back. "Why do you always have to make everything a competition, Eugene?" she snapped during one of their heated arguments. "I'm not your pawn." Eugene, his claws raised defensively, shot back, "I'm not trying to control you, Audrey. I just want you to understand that your emotions are unruly. You need to be more stable." Both failed to see how their behaviors fed into one another's narcissism. Audrey would lash out at Eugene, seeking validation for her emotions, while Eugene would retaliate, believing he was maintaining control by making her feel inferior. They were trapped in a never-ending cycle of blame, each convinced that the other was the source of their problems. Chapter 3. The Gossip Mill. As their relationship spiraled into chaos, the townsfolk of Asheville and Shelby began to take notice. Gossip spread like wildfire, with whispers of Audrey's emotional outbursts and Eugene's cruel remarks circulating through the community. Both were too wrapped up in their drama to recognize how their actions affected those around them. "Did you hear about Audrey and Eugene?" one neighbor said to another while walking their dogs in the park. "It's like watching a train wreck. You can't look away." As the gossip grew, so did the drama in Audrey and Eugene's lives. They found themselves embroiled in arguments not just with each other, but with friends and family who tried to intervene. Instead of acknowledging their shortcomings, they became defensive and hostile, quickly spiraling into a blame game that left no room for self-reflection. Eugene would often say to Audrey, "You're the reason we're having these problems. You're too emotional." Meanwhile, Audrey would counter, "If you weren't so obsessed with control, we wouldn't be fighting." Their inability to take responsibility for their actions turned their relationship into a toxic cycle that only fueled their narcissism. They thrived on the drama, unable to see that the very thing they sought, control, was the source of their discontent. Chapter 4. The Mirror of Truth. One fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over Asheville, Audrey and Eugene found themselves in another heated argument. This time, however, something shifted. As they hurled accusations at one another, the weight of their words began to sink in. Audrey's fur bristled as she shouted, "You think you can just belittle me and I'll take it? I'm not your puppet, Eugene." Eugene, caught off guard, paused for a moment. The truth of her words resonated within him. He had been so focused on proving his control that he hadn't realized he was pushing her further away. Maybe I do need to rethink how I treat you," he admitted reluctantly, his bravado faltering. For the first time, they were confronted with the reality of their relationship. The mirror of truth reflected not just their flaws, but the ways in which they had fed into each other's insecurities. Chapter 5. The Path to Redemption. With the realization came a choice. Audrey and Eugene could continue down the path of blame and drama, or they could confront their issues together. It wouldn't be easy, but the first step toward healing was acknowledging their shared responsibility. They began to communicate more openly, though it was difficult. Audrey struggled to temper her emotional responses, while Eugene fought against the urge to belittle. They sought the guidance of a wise elder from their community, a retired dog named Sage who had seen many relationships flourish and falter. Sage listened patiently as they recounted their struggles. "You both are caught in a web of narcissism, where the blame game has become your default mode," she said gently. "To break free, you must learn to take ownership of your actions and support one another in growth." Inspired by Sage's wisdom, they began to practice self-reflection. Audrey wrote in a journal, exploring her emotional triggers, while Eugene sought to understand the roots of his controlling tendencies. They found common ground in acknowledging their shortcomings, slowly dismantling the walls they had built around themselves. Chapter 6. The Transformation. As weeks turned into months, Audrey and Eugene began to transform. Their arguments became less frequent and more constructive. They learned to communicate without resorting to blame, embracing vulnerability instead. Audrey discovered that expressing her emotions didn't equate to weakness, it was a strength that allowed her to connect more deeply with Eugene. Meanwhile, Eugene learned that true control came not from belittling others, but from empowering them. He found joy in uplifting Audrey, rather than tearing her down. The townsfolk noticed the change as well. Where there had once been gossip, there was now support. Friends and neighbors began to rally around the couple, encouraging their growth and celebrating their progress. Epilogue. In time, Audrey and Eugene's relationship evolved from one of chaos to one of partnership. They became advocates for understanding and emotional growth within their community, using their experiences to help others recognize the pitfalls of narcissism. Together, they broke the cycle of blame and drama, building a relationship rooted in empathy and respect. While they still had moments of struggle, they faced them together, recognizing that true strength came from lifting each other up rather than tearing each other down. As they walked through the streets of Asheville, hand in claw, they embodied a new narrative, one of growth, healing, and the power of love to transform even the most tumultuous of unions. 10 Down WJ, where creativity meets impact.